The decision to delay and cancel critical vaccine advisory meetings at both the CDC and FDA is a deeply alarming move that threatens to undermine public health, disrupt vaccine production, and erode trust in medical institutions. These meetings are not mere bureaucratic formalities. They are essential forums where experts assess vaccine safety, effectiveness, and distribution to ensure that millions of Americans receive the protection they need against infectious diseases. The sudden postponement of the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACP, meeting, followed by the unexplained cancellation of the FDA's Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee, VRBAC, meeting has set off widespread concern among public health officials, doctors, and vaccine manufacturers. The consequences of these disruptions could be severe, potentially leading to delays in the availability of flu shots, setbacks in vaccine policy decisions, and a heightened risk of preventable disease outbreaks. This is happening at a time when the United States is already grappling with a brutal flu season and a resurgence of measles, diseases that are entirely preventable with timely vaccination. These disruptions introduce unnecessary uncertainty into the process of regulating and distributing vaccines, jeopardizing public confidence in a system that relies on transparency and scientific rigor. The fact that these disruptions have taken place under the leadership of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a longtime vaccine skeptic who has a history of spreading misinformation about immunization safety, raises serious questions about whether this is an intentional effort to undermine vaccine programs. While Kennedy insists that he is not anti-vaccine, his actions tell a different story. His financial ties to law firms that sue vaccine manufacturers, his misleading statements about vaccine advisory committees, and his history of casting doubt on established immunization science all point to a troubling agenda, one that could endanger public health by sowing confusion and distrust. The ACIP meeting that was postponed was set to review vaccines for several serious diseases, including meningococcal infections, RSV, chikungunya, pox, and flu. These are not trivial illnesses. Meningococcal disease, for example, can lead to fatal brain infections, while RSV is a leading cause of hospitalization in infants and older adults. Any delay in updating vaccine recommendations for these illnesses means that healthcare providers will be left without the most current guidance, potentially putting patients at risk. Even more concerning, the meeting was supposed to include votes on the Vaccines for Children program, which provides free immunizations to children from low-income families. Disrupting this program could have devastating consequences, particularly for vulnerable populations who rely on these vaccines to stay protected. The lack of a clear rescheduling date leaves uncertainty about whether these crucial policy decisions will be made in time to ensure proper vaccine distribution. The cancellation of the FDA's Vaccine Committee meeting is even more dangerous, as it could disrupt the process of selecting the flu strains for next season's vaccines. Flu vaccines must be produced months in advance, using carefully selected virus strains that are predicted to be the most common in the upcoming season. This process is a race against time. Any delay in selecting the strains means that manufacturers may not be able to produce enough doses before flu season begins. Without an official FDA endorsement of the selected strains, manufacturers could be left without the necessary approvals to proceed with production, creating potential shortages that could leave millions unprotected. Even if the FDA ultimately makes its decision without a public meeting, bypassing the usual advisory process removes an essential layer of expert review and transparency. The public deserves to see how these decisions are made, and the lack of an open discussion raises serious concerns about the integrity of the process. The timing of these disruptions is especially troubling given that vaccine hesitancy is on a rise. Public trust in vaccines has been eroded by misinformation, conspiracy theories, and political interference. By canceling these meetings, the government is sending a dangerous message that expert input on vaccines is not a priority. This fuels suspicion and plays directly into the hands of those who seek to discredit vaccination efforts. The scientific process behind vaccine recommendations must be as transparent as possible to reassure the public that decisions are based on data, not politics. Without this transparency, skepticism will grow, vaccine uptake will decline and outbreaks of preventable diseases will become more common. Healthcare providers and vaccine advocates are already sounding the alarm. Experts warn that failing to hold these advisory meetings deprives the public of the rigorous debate and scrutiny that ensure vaccine policies are based on the best available science. Doctors are concerned that delays in decision-making will result in unnecessary illness and deaths. The Infectious Diseases Society of America has explicitly warned that the FDA's failure to hold its advisory meeting could cost lives by delaying flu vaccine production. The cancellation of these meetings not only disrupts the regulatory process, it actively puts people in danger. The public must demand answers. Why were these meetings canceled? Why was no explanation given for the FDA's decision? Will the ACIP meeting be rescheduled? And if so, when? What steps are being taken to ensure that flu vaccine production stays on track? The silence from health officials is unacceptable. The stakes are too high to allow political interference or bureaucratic delays to endanger vaccine access. This is not just a matter of policy, it is a matter of life and death. Delays in vaccine approvals, disruptions in distribution, and increasing public distrust could lead to more disease outbreaks, more hospitalizations, and more unnecessary suffering. The U.S. healthcare system is already struggling with overcrowded hospitals and overburdened providers. Adding preventable infectious disease outbreaks to the mix is reckless and irresponsible. The government must act immediately to restore trust in the vaccine approval process. The ACIP meeting must be rescheduled without further delay. The FDA must hold its advisory meeting and allow public input on flu vaccine strain selection. And most importantly, officials must be fully transparent about why these disruptions occurred and what steps are being taken to prevent further delays. The public has a right to know that vaccine decisions are being made based on science, not politics, misinformation, or personal agendas. If this pattern of obstruction continues, the consequences will be dire. There is no room for hesitation when it comes to protecting public health. This is a crisis that demands urgent action before it is too late.